The Secret of Shambhala by James Redfield, Chapter 8, The Life Process. The Life Process. It is the whole picture of how a society can evolve once it begins to raise its level of prayer energy. The first thing that happens is those who create the technology will begin to make it ever more efficient and automated so that robots make more and more of the material goods in the society. This is already occurring in every industry in the outer cultures and is a positive development despite the fact that it is especially dangerous. It can place too much power in the hands of a few individuals or corporations unless it is decentralized. It also creates job losses, and many people have to adjust how they make a living. How this problem of automation is mediated. As material production is automated, the overall economy will begin to shift toward one of information and service, providing just the right information at just the right time for others, which will necessitate everyone becoming more intuitive and alert and focused on synchronistic perception as a way of life. As spiritual knowledge increased, and as people become aware of the creative power they can attain with their prayer fields, technology is evolved another step. That's when the thought wave amplifiers will be discovered so that individuals can create everything they need mentally. When this happens, the culture will be free to focus completely on spiritual matters, or what we call the life process itself. Shambhala society. The whole society is educated to the wider reality of the spirit. At some point, every culture must truly grasp that we are spiritual beings and that our bodies themselves are only atoms in a particular vibration, a vibration that can be raised as our connection and prayer power increase. They understand that we come down here from the purely spiritual plane to accomplish something. We come here on a mission to bring the whole world into full spiritual awareness, generation by generation, and to do it as cautiously as possible. Participate in the life process from the very beginning, even before birth. Parents have an intuitive relationship with the unborn child before birth. Souls contact parents before conception and make their presence known. It's part of the process of deciding whether the prospective parents and family are actually the right one for their life experience desired. Choosing the right mate is important from an evolutionary point of view. As we evolve spiritually, humans are destined to mate consciously in order to set up a home or home attitude that represents a more truthful way of life compared to the previous generation. The unborn children would bring up the questions of why they would want to be born into a family, where this is leading. As the mother and father are intuiting how the child will use the wisdom the child will find with them and then stretch it further, the unborn soul is doing the same thing in a pre-life vision of what it wants to accomplish. Deliberate conception. Once a couple decides to attempt conception to bring in a soul they intuit, the physical act is a kind of merging of energy fields that in a very real way orgasmically opens a gate into heaven and allows the soul in. The two merge their energy fields into one, and the child was a product of the merger. The genes of the mother and father combine to make a child whose characteristics are synchronistic with the best destinies of all three people. The child has an intended destiny that he or she visualizes in a pre-life vision, and the genes combine in a precise way to give the child the tendencies and talents needed to fulfill this vision. The parent's intuition and the child's intuition work together to give the child the best preparation for accomplishing his or her life purpose. Who goes to the temples? Who stays in the rings? The culture is dividing into those who teach and those who are called to the temples. Many of those who are at the temples come back and forth every few days to maintain relationships, especially if they have children. The situation can change at any time based on intuition. Those who work at the temples can come back to teach, and those who have been teaching will go to the temples. It's all very fluid and synchronistic. Helping the child wake up. Each of us forgets to some degree why we came to Earth and what we intended to do with our lives. The child must be given the historical circumstances that surround the event of the birth. It's important to give the child the context for life so that he knows what has occurred before he arrived and where he fits in. That includes the history of his family back several generations. These we keep on a recorder similar to a videotape, except that it is stored electronically. Kids are able to watch their relatives back 7 generations telling them about their lives, what their dreams had been, what worked and what didn't work, and at the end of their lives, what they would have done differently. Hearing this from relatives helps a younger person chart the course of their own lives by by learning from the mistakes and building on the wisdom of those who came before. There is an importance for young people to understand the sequence of generations that came before them. Life is a constantly mysterious, informative process. The succession of generations. The human world evolves through the succession of generations. One generation establishes a way of life and meets certain challenges, and the next generation comes along and extends that worldview. Failures in parenting in the outer culture. Parents want children to be just like them, to take the same view of everything. This desire is natural in a way because we all want our children to reinforce the choices we have made, but often the process becomes antagonistic. The parents criticize the interests of the children, and the children criticize the old-fashioned ways of the parents. To some degree, it is part of the process. Children look at the lives of the parents and think, I like most of how they live, but I would have done certain things differently. All children have a sense of what is incomplete in their parents' way of life. After all, that's the system. We chose our parents in part to be awakened to what is missing, to what needs to be added to human understanding, and we begin that process by being dissatisfied with what we find in our lives with them. It doesn't have to be antagonistic. Once we know the life process, we can participate consciously. Parents can be open to the criticisms of their children and be supportive of their dreams. Of course, doing this causes the parents to have to stretch their own ways of thinking and evolve along with their children, which can be difficult. Steps of the life process. Once children gained an understanding of history and family, the next step for them is to learn to extend their creative prayer field. Then find a way to advance the culture, either teaching in the outer rings or using their prayer fields at the temples. Some devote to the teaching of children, and others will enter the many institutions of human culture and help move them toward the spiritual ideal. Corrupted industries that should be working for the good of society. The food industry. They make fake food, patenting of the seeds, the pharmaceutical cartel modifying remedies so that they could patent them instead of helping cure people. The media distorting reality, creating false needs, being owned by the corporation. The government spying, privacy invasion. Centralization is bad. A cashless society controlled by a central authority. The move to a central, spiritless governmental authority in a high-tech virtual world divorced from natural processes where food, water, and the routines of living have been trivialized and distorted. How the generations of the 20th century flow. The World War II generation fought against tyranny and proved that democracy could not only flourish in the modern world, but expand tremendously and connect the world's economies. The boomers arrived to say that there were problems with this expansion, that we were polluting the natural world and losing touch with nature and a spiritual reality that exists beneath the whims of history. The next generation has come along to focus on the economy, to refashion technology so that it can consciously support our mental and spiritual ability. Unify the religions. This was a big concept throughout all of the books, is that all the religions have basically the same principles and there's no reason they should be all divided. They should unite and share in the knowledge. The fourth extension. Technology must evolve. Focus on the life process, the miracle of birth and conscious evolution. This focus creates the most inspiration and most fun. Our lives must revolve around the mysteries of family and talent and the search for individual mission. And that concludes Chapter 8.